Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and this is another edition of Fresh Red Kills. So, Fresh Red Kills is where I talk about the books that I have recently finished reading. We're getting towards the end of the month of March. In booktube world, that can mean many different events. One of the big events, though, that a lot of people participate in, that I am participating in this year, is March of the Mammoths, where you are encouraged to pick up a book that is over 800 pages on your shelf and at least get it started. You may not finish it in March, but at least get it started. Now, I did start my Mammoth, and I am going to definitely finish it by the end. So, the last couple of weeks, I have been reading Stephen King's The Stand, the revised, updated edition that came out in 1990. You see, I'm getting pretty close to the end there. I've got less than 200 pages, I think. So, in the next few days, definitely before April 1st hits, I'll finally have finished this. And I'll make a separate video talking about this. I will say that I am enjoying it. Even towards the end, I'm still enjoying it. I am aware that there's a problematic ending, and I'm wondering how that's gonna, affect my overall enjoyment in the end. So I guess stay tuned if you care about that. But I'm not going to discuss that this video. The thing is, this thing is big. It's heavy. I was grabbing other things off my shelf. That would be very quick reads and very easy reads. So I'm just going to show those really quickly. Now, I don't think any of these things are going to be super interesting to the people watching these videos, so I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on them. But I figured, I own these things. I picked them up. I read them. I might as well talk about them. That's what the Fresh Red Kills videos are all about. So one of the things I read, I just kind of picked up, read a couple stories, and, over a course of a short amount of time, you could pretty much get this done really quickly. This is Spooky New England. Tales of hauntings, strange happenings, and other local lore, retold by S.E. Schlosser, illustrated by Paul G. Hoffman. And you see the illustrations. The illustrations are actually pretty cool in this. I'm pretty sure that I had gotten this, I think, at a Costco. I think they had a stack of these things. And it turns out that, this author, she has a whole line of these things. It's like, this one's Spooky New England. There's like Spooky Georgia, Spooky pretty much every state you could think of, and then some. So what she does is she takes ghost tales and legends, things like that, and she basically retells them in her own words and releases it almost like a short story collection. So I thought this was going to be a little bit more. I thought I was going to read a little bit more like nonfiction. And I don't mean that as in like all these ghosts are real, but more like recounting what the stories were and giving some background into it. That's not really what it is. They're told as though they are like short stories. And she does have a bibliography at the end, or at least I should say resources. But you don't know which resources you're getting these stories from. And a lot of stories are very short. Some of them are almost like flash fiction. They all do have these really cool illustrations, though. So I was kind of thrown off a little bit. This doesn't explain the legends or the lore or the ghost stories really at all. And you're reading them without any kind of context. And not only that, doing a little bit of work looking up on the author, she has a background, it seems like, in children's literature. And I think it shows in this. This definitely reads like a book for younger readers, more like young adult or something like that, not really for adult readers. So I had to make some adjustments when I was reading this. And I guess I should say a little bit for why I read it. I am somebody who is fascinated by, well, I've been a fan of the horror genre, especially the film genre, my whole life. I am really interested in things like ghost stories. I am not a believer in ghosts. I'm not a believer in the supernatural, but I do believe that ghost stories can tell us a lot about what we value or our history, or it's a connection to the past. I think the kind of ghost stories we tell say a lot about us. And so I'm fascinated by those sorts of things, looking at ghost stories and these sorts of creepy tales as, pieces of folklore. I really like that. And that's kind of what I was trying to go into this with. Now, the attitude I was trying to go into with this. The quality varies. in this. The first couple stories I actually didn't really care for, and there's some questionable history that she puts in here. At one point, she's talking about a Confederate during the Civil War, a Confederate general who was being held in a northern prison, and he somehow gets a message to his wife back home through the Underground Railroad where he's staying. I mean, that's not how the Underground Railroad works. They are not there to spread secret messages for Confederate generals in prison. Uh, I think maybe we need another refresher about what the actual Underground Railroad was and what it was for. So you find weird things like that. We also have like some Christian themed stories in here that can seem kind of weird and out of place. But again, we have resources in the back, but I don't have any context for those stories. I don't know how old they are. I don't know if this is something that she found in a book that's 150 years old, or if it's something fairly new. I don't know how old these legends are. So I think some context would have actually made these more enjoyable. So going into this and reading it, I'm basically like, I'm reading like, like children's short fiction, something that would be spooky for a kid. So taking it that way, I liked some of the stories quite a bit. Others, most of them are pretty mediocre. So would I recommend something like this? Not necessarily for an adult. I think for a kid, yes, that would be perfectly fine. Like I said, there's some stories in here that I would actually like to find out more about and research myself. But not only that, too, she sometimes will write in like colloquialism, where she tries to kind of write in an accent. And sometimes the accents do not read like New England. They read like Deep South or something like that. I can't place a New England accent, and I'm from New England, Connecticut, but still, sometimes it sounds like somebody's speaking from Alabama or something like that. The way that she's put the accents in. So a mixed bag. I would recommend this for younger readers who want some spooky tales, but I think adults can pretty much pass on it, even though it is a cool looking book. Yeah, I mean, it's nice production, and like I said, I like the like a lot of the images that are in here quite a bit, but wish there was more to it. The other thing that I read, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these things. I read a bunch of DC Comics Deluxe Editions. I had gotten these super cheap from Hamilton Books, which is a Connecticut, discount bookseller who often have some really cool things. And my kids and I, over the past year or so, have been reading more comic books. They've gotten into comic books. Sometimes we lay in bed and just like read graphic novels. We each have our own graphic novel. So I've just been, basically getting nostalgic, and I've always liked graphic novels, and I like superhero comics sometimes, depending on the story. So I found these super cheap on Hamilton Books a while back, and I picked them up. And I thought, well, since I'm going through the stand, I might as well start picking through these and reading them. So these deluxe editions, they're oversized special editions of some key issues. So we have Detective Comics 2027. So Batman, if I remember correctly, first appeared in Detective Comics 27. So this is 1,000 issues in. And it's kind of like short story collections. We have a whole bunch of writers writing various Batman stories, some of which I liked better than others. There's another Batman one in here. Here's a Batman Detective Comics 1000. So once again, oversized and short stories. And overall, they're okay. The problem is that so many of these stories, I think when it comes to Batman, one of the strengths of Batman is that there's different versions of Batman. So there are, some that people will like more than others. I kind of like a brooding Batman who is in this, Gotham. I want to be like a gothic cityscape. I want him to be a detective, and, I want the kind of grittiness of a Batman comic. But then sometimes you have like these like Bat family stories where he has this extended family of like Bat superhero people that he's with. And it's like more than half a dozen people. And it just stretches credulity that you could have that many people and not have your secret identity going flying out. And those can get a little bit, sappy. So mixed bag for this sort of thing. There was, I forget which one it's in, but there's a really fun one that I liked where it's supposed to be Bruce Wayne when he's really old, and a really old penguin walks up to him and tries to harass him. I thought that story was pretty funny, but it was okay. I also read Action Comics issue 1000, commemorative about Superman. And there's a lot of filler in some of these things. They call them variant covers, but really, I mean, we're just talking filler art. I mean, some of the art is good, but some of it is, you don't need a full page for this sort of thing. So there's a lot of filler, a lot of empty, space that could have been used more wisely. And this is another one, mixed bag. For me, a lot of these Superman stories can get a little bit too saccharine. But, Superman's not my favorite. I don't dislike Superman, but again, it really depends on the story. And the one that I actually found the most interesting, the last one that I had read, was this one. This is Swamp Thing, Roots of Terror Deluxe Edition. So what's interesting about this, so this is kind of a tribute to Len Wein. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. I'm not entirely sure, but he's one of the co-creators of Swamp Thing. And one of the things we have in here is his last story that they basically paneled out the artwork, but he died before all the text could be done. So what they've done in tribute to him is put out the story without the text. So you're just kind of getting and filling in what his story is. And that's interesting. And there's overall some decent Swamp Thing, kind of horror-themed stories. What I liked was the first one. And it's called, let's get to it here really quickly. The Talk of Saints. And it's Swamp Thing carrying this boy through the wilderness. But there's something else going on there. And it's something that won an Eisner Award, and I can see why. I really like that story. I thought it was pretty strong. So overall, this was nice. I like that first story. The other stories are fine, and I like the little tribute to Len Wein. The other things are okay. So yeah, I mean, if this is something that interests you, and you can get them super cheap like I did, I mean, I'm talking like maybe like $2 each or something, I think they're worth picking up and checking out, but I wouldn't spend a lot of money on these at all. And I definitely didn't. So yeah, those are the things that I was reading while reading The Stand. So again, Spooky New England and DC Comics Deluxe Editions. So just kind of a quick conversation about some of these things. If you've read them, certainly like to hear your thoughts on them. If you have any other good recommendations that are better than these, I'd also love to hear that. As always, thank you, BookTube.